Mom's secret plan that made me her perfect daughter. I've always felt like I didn't quite fit in with the life my mom wanted for me. Growing up, I always sensed a gap between her expectations and my reality. She had this picture in her mind of the perfect daughter, someone poised, graceful, and effortlessly elegant, and I was anything but. I was a bit of a tomboy, always in baggy jeans, a graphic tee, and messy hair. Sports, video games, and hanging out with my friends were my world. I never understood why Mom insisted on trying to make me something I wasn't. She'd drag me to beauty salons for manicures, or force me into dresses I could never stand. "You'll look so pretty in this," she'd say, her voice full of hope and excitement. But every time I looked in the mirror, I felt like a stranger. The makeup never quite looked right, and the dresses made me feel stiff and uncomfortable. Why couldn't she see that I was happy just being myself? She'd sigh and smile, but her eyes always held a hint of disappointment. I could never live up to what she dreamed for me, and that bothered me, more than I cared to admit. I loved her and I wanted to make her proud, but the more I tried to fit into her world, the more I felt like I was failing. Even as I grew older, nothing really changed. My mother and I would have the same conversations about me, getting my life together, and becoming the woman she knew I could be. She'd leave magazines lying around, full of glossy, flawless models, hoping I'd take the hint. I didn't. I hated the idea of being something I wasn't. I didn't want to be a perfect version of her ideal daughter. I wanted to be me. But I always felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying not to disappoint her while also staying true to myself. Deep down, I knew I was missing something. Maybe there was a part of me that secretly longed to embrace the femininity my mom so effortlessly embodied, but I couldn't bring myself to accept it. I wanted to be more like her, but I couldn't admit it. I couldn't admit that I might actually enjoy feeling beautiful or graceful, like all the things she dreamed for me. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. It happened one weekend, during a family gathering at our house. Mom had invited some friends over, and I knew she was hoping to impress them with how put together her daughter was. As I walked into the living room, I could feel her eyes on me, studying my appearance. "Why don't you go upstairs and change into something more appropriate?" she suggested softly, as though trying not to hurt my feelings. "Mom, I'm fine," I replied, already irritated. I didn't want to dress up for her friends. I wasn't interested in playing pretend. But she wouldn't let it go. "Just for a little while. Please, sweetheart. Do it for me." The way she said it, so quietly, but with such sincerity, I couldn't refuse. I went upstairs, begrudgingly, and rifled through my closet. I found an old dress that I'd never worn, a gift from one of her friends that I had shoved in the back of my closet months ago. When I stepped out, Mom's face lit up. She gasped, a little too dramatically, as if she hadn't seen me in anything other than sweats and oversized hoodies. "Oh, darling, you look stunning," she whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. For the first time, I didn't feel uncomfortable. It wasn't about fitting her expectations. It was about how the dress made me feel. There was something empowering in the way it hugged my body, in the way I stood a little taller. For a moment, I felt like I was seeing myself in a new light. I couldn't help but notice that Mom's friends were staring at me, nodding approvingly. But just as quickly as the feeling came, it disappeared. I felt a pang of guilt. Was I just playing into her plan? Was I becoming something I didn't want to be? But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in me. Maybe, just maybe, I could be both the person I wanted to be and the daughter my mom had always hoped for. But how? The weeks that followed that day were filled with internal conflict. I started wearing the dress a little more often, experimenting with my appearance. Mom would always offer to help, suggesting hairstyles or makeup tips. Part of me wanted to push her away, to tell her that I didn't need her help. But the other part of me, this part that I didn't quite understand, was drawn to her guidance. She wasn't asking me to become someone else, not really. She was just trying to help me uncover something that might have been buried inside me all along. It wasn't easy at first. I still hated the idea of dressing up and acting the part. Every time I stood in front of the mirror, I could feel the unease creeping back in. But little by little, I began to feel more comfortable in my own skin. My mom didn't push me too hard. She never asked me to wear anything I wasn't ready for, but she would smile whenever I showed even the slightest interest in her world. One afternoon, she asked me to join her for a mother-daughter outing. I was hesitant at first, but she promised it would just be a casual afternoon out. We spent hours together at the mall, walking from store to store, picking out clothes, and laughing over silly things. She was so kind and patient with me, never once making me feel pressure to conform to her ideals. It felt like we were bonding in a way we hadn't in years. And then something unexpected happened. I was trying on a dress in one of the stores, feeling completely out of my element, when I noticed my reflection in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself at first. The girl staring back at me wasn't the messy, rebellious tomboy I'd always been. She looked different, confident, beautiful even. It was as if the dress had unlocked something in me, something I hadn't even known was there. I stood there for a moment, studying my reflection, wondering how I had gotten here. It wasn't that I had become someone else. It was that I was finally allowing myself to be who I truly was, without the fear of disappointing anyone. I didn't have to be the perfect daughter. I just had to be me, and maybe, just maybe, that could be enough. As much as I had embraced the idea of transformation, it wasn't all smooth sailing. At school, I began to feel the weight of judgment from my peers. Some of the guys in my class started making fun of me, teasing me about my appearance. "What happened to you?" they'd ask, as if my newfound style was some kind of betrayal. Even some of my closest friends seemed confused. "You've changed," they'd say, their voices laced with uncertainty. "Are you okay?" I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell them that I was more than just the person they thought I was. But at that moment, I couldn't find the words. I felt like I was in the middle of a delicate balancing act, unsure of which side to lean into. One day I snapped. A comment from one of my classmates hit me harder than I expected. "You're just trying to be someone you're not," he said, smirking. "You'll never fit in with the girls." I stormed out of the classroom, my heart pounding in my chest. Was he right? Was I just pretending to be something I wasn't? But then I remembered my mom. She had never once asked me to change who I was. She just wanted me to explore a side of myself that I'd buried for years. I wasn't pretending, I was growing. I was learning to embrace all parts of myself, even the ones I hadn't fully understood. The breakthrough came one evening, when I sat down with Mom and told her everything. I confessed my fears, about what others might think, about the pressure to conform, about the guilt I felt for not meeting her expectations. Mom listened quietly, her eyes soft with understanding. "Sweetheart," she said, "you're not becoming someone you're not. You're just becoming more of who you already are." It was like a light bulb went off in my mind. In that moment, I realized that all the pieces of myself, my love for sports, my tomboyish side, my desire to feel graceful and beautiful, could coexist. I didn't have to choose one identity over the other. I could be both. I could be everything I wanted to be. From that moment on, I embraced my new identity without hesitation. I felt more confident, more at peace with who I was becoming. I still wore my old clothes, but now I also wore the dresses and makeup I had once resisted. They didn't define me, they simply allowed me to express a side of myself I hadn't allowed before. The real test came when I had to face my friends. I invited them over for a movie night, nervous about how they would react to my new look. When they walked in, there was an awkward silence. But then one of my closest friends, Sarah, smiled. "You look great," she said, her voice genuine. "I'm proud of you for being yourself." That was all I needed. The fear that had weighed me down melted away. I realized that I didn't need to seek approval from anyone, I just needed to be true to myself. Over the next few months, I found myself growing more confident in my own skin. My relationship with Mom became stronger than ever, and I began to understand her better. She wasn't trying to mold me into her image, she was simply trying to help me discover my own. I balanced the different parts of myself with ease. I played sports, hung out with my friends, and embraced my new sense of style. I felt more complete, more myself than I ever had before. In the end, I learned that transformation isn't about becoming someone else. It's about embracing all parts of who you are. It's about letting go of the fear of judgment and allowing yourself to evolve, to grow, and to become the person you're meant to be. It's okay to change, to explore new parts of yourself, and to accept help along the way. What matters most is that you're true to yourself, and that's when the real magic happens.